Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of VCCP's Challenger series. This time we're going to be delving into the Machiavellian world of account handling with its sharp suits, its silver tongues, its wine bars and late nights at Soho House. On which note, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to two of our finest account handlers, Emma Whitmarsh and Olivia Packshaw. Emma is our Managing Director of VCCP Group, so extremely one of our luminaries, as is Olivia, who's a business partner. Between them, they work on, I'm going to get this right, because they switched accounts recently, Barclays and Co-op, VMO2 and PepsiCo. In fact, they have the pleasure of working with me on all their accounts, so they're very fortunate. But we're going to learn a lot from them. I'm going to start with a tiny little bit of a homily about account handling. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode was because a couple of decades ago, I thought account handling was very close to a near-death experience because of this. Suddenly, the account man or the account woman was no longer the sole source of knowledge and information. And I thought their world was beginning to unravel a bit because obviously information is power, and the client could now get hold directly of the creative director, the planner, the producer. Well, essentially all the old verticals fell apart, which was an existential challenge to the discipline. That said, what then happened is, of course, the world of communication proliferated, again, in part because of smartphones. So there were many more platforms, there were many more forms of content creation, not least co-creation, user generation, influencers. There were many, many more stakeholders that needed managing. And of course, now we've got AI on top of everything. So a conductor or a choreographer became more essential, and the suit or the account handler, I think, has become utterly pivotal to success. Always was, but I think the role is growing in importance. That's my view. Emma, what do you think in terms of your experience of the account handling role?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's really useful for clients still to have a point person. I think it's really healthy to have relationships with everyone, a creative strats to have direct client relationships, but I think a client still wants to talk to you ultimately because you can shortcut conversations, you speak the same language, you can have that kind of healthy debate and challenge amongst each other. I think that's really useful. And internally as well, I think it's useful to have that kind of one person who ultimately takes the kind of burden and weight of responsibility, I guess, of that client relationship. I think that's still really important.
No, otherwise you get lots of versions of the feedback. No, I understand that. There's a point I'm going to come back to you on, but I'll get your top line, Liv.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, you are talking to two suits, so we probably aren't going to say that we're not important in the future of history. But yeah, I think the point you said about how the conductor has never been more important, I think is definitely true. If media is atomizing more and more and more, then the person who brings that together makes that all, sing or make a tune is going to be really, really critical. And I think that clients and agencies really struggle with that. And so that's a really important and quite big role.
Do you find that it's just a case of more and more plate spinning, or do you...
Sometimes described as herding cats.
Herding cats,
that can happen too. Yeah, I mean, yes. But I think great account people, I think the feeling of that plate spinning is probably not projected externally too much.
All right.
And also I think that's probably done with a bit of, business acumen and strategic understanding so that plate spinning is not just quite literally keeping them alive, but hopefully improving them as they spin.
No.
I think it's not just organising all the plates as well, it's about building the right team to deliver. So it's about pulling in the right people at the right time. It's about building a team that want to work together and making clients feel part of that team as well.
Yeah,
so I think it used to be seen as just an organisation job. I actually think it's much bigger than that.
You mentioned the need to challenge the client on behalf of, I guess, on behalf of that team, that group of individuals. But there is a portrayal of the suit as a bit of a a yes person and a bit of a sort of people pleaser. Do you ever feel that you sometimes have to sort of balance between, well, I suppose, how much diplomacy is required between saying it as it exactly is or how the client will be prepared to digest it?
I think there is a lot of diplomacy needed, but I think ultimately you're there to make the best possible work and deliver results, and that isn't always the most popular thing that a client or internal team wants. So I think that's where the strong relationships comes in, is you need to be able to have that open, honest conversation with your clients and internally, and you need to make everyone feel like you've got the work at the heart of this and it's not personal. You're just trying to do the best possible job. So yeah, I think the relationships is where it becomes much easier. I mean, one of the marketing directors described the VMO2 team, the account team, as a lovable pain in the arse, and I've always loved that, because we can be a pain in the arse, but for the right reasons, and it's done in a way that's years and years of relationship building, so that you know it comes from the right place.
Yeah.
Dougie once said, he's quite good at this in particular, but he said, you know, it's possible to say a polite no. And he told me that really early on in my career. And it's true. I think if you're trying to do that, as Em says, on behalf of, you know, great work, achieving great results, and you're doing that because you're trying to be a responsible partner, those words land well. But if you're doing it for what it feels like the wrong intentions, then it will, of course, land badly, and hence the need for that diplomacy.
Yes. Well, this brings me on to the second area of discussion, which is it's interesting because it's a perennial debate between, does an agency sell its work to a client or encourage them to buy the work, or is it even that analogy too transactional? I'd be interested in your perspective. Would you like to start, Olivia?
Yeah. I mean, no one likes to think of themselves as a used car salesman. So I think when you think about the job and do we need to sell, I think people tend to say, no, not at all. But, you know, selling is persuasion and influence. And that is definitely a really, really big part of this role. And you can't do that in the media landscape we referred to and the client teams and structures that reflect that media landscape. They're often very diversified and, you know, often, you know, siloed or spread across different parts of the globe without having the ability to persuade and influence. So that there is probably a need to sell, but just maybe not in those terms anymore. And there's certainly a need to create an environment in which the best work can be bought, which is maybe just the other side of that same coin.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think we definitely create the environment, and I agree with persuasion as well, because I think good account people are persuasive, and it's not because they subjectively like the work, it's because it's the right work, and ultimately they get the client to trust that be the case. And I think that doesn't mean we always get it right. Yeah. I think some of the very best ideas are shaped and built with clients, in partnership with clients. So I think, yeah, it's about the starting place, I think, being better and bolder and more courageous with clients to then build on.
Yeah, because this is going to be a slightly mean question, but it's easy to, in my experience, it's easy to sell something you're convinced about. But I guess on occasion at other agencies, not at VCCP, you've had to present stuff you're not convinced by. Now that doesn't mean to say it isn't the right recommendation, but how do you negotiate where you think sometimes the work should be better, or there's a need to confront or challenge product quality? How do you manage situations like that?
Yeah, I think it's slightly not being afraid of messy conversations. I think we used to potentially have to have it all polished and perfect to take it to the client. And I think when you have a really strong relationship with a client, you can have more of a tissue type conversation. Yeah. So we think we're in roughly the right direction, but there's a lot of honing to be done. I think that openness and honesty is a good thing. So I think that's probably how I would navigate it. Because yeah, I've certainly been in that situation before. I think if it's...
You must love messy situations. I mean, that's the biggest control freak I know. It must be a nightmare for you. But I do agree,
Yeah.
allowing it to be fairly raw
Yeah.
and unstructured allows a much more honest
Yeah.
discussion.
I think that's how you get to places very quickly in pitches as well, because it's like an agreed part of the process. You have a tissue meeting, a lot of it is wrong, but by having things that are wrong, you learn. You don't have that luxury necessarily once you're working together full time, but I do think allowing a bit of mess is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anything
Well,
else?
the thing I was going to pick up on, which you've both mentioned, is also by allowing things to be more in their formative stages, or less rigid and less finalised anyway, it allows for greater bravery because it's more experimental.
Yeah.
And I think that's the danger of a closed sales process, is it can become risk averse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it can be about what can we get through rather than what's the best outcome.
Yeah.
So I think it's a real art in the whole process of whether it's selling or persuading, is that you don't close down the creative imagination too soon.
Yeah.
There comes a point at which you have to get operational. But
Yeah, definitely. And I think you have to be conscious of where your client is, where they are on the journey with you. Is this a new relationship or is this established? But also, what's the work that they've made? Where are you on that journey together? Because I think if you're, you can't always go from 0 to 60, instantaneously. You might need to be on a journey together. And so what good looks like right now does need to be, responsibly pitched. And sometimes you need to, develop some trust and some understanding over time, and you can continue to build on that. Sometimes it's not necessarily about trying to sell or construct work that you don't necessarily believe in. It might just be right for them and you right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that's the furthest extent that you can go with that brand.
yeah, you're getting ahead of yourself there. We'll be coming on to that topic. No, it's absolutely right, and relationships are key. Would anyone like a tea or a coffee?
I'd love a coffee, actually.
yeah.
I would never pass up the opportunity to have you make me a cup of coffee.
Well, I'm
It's a
sort of,
careat high for me that I will, of
I've
course.
often made you a cup of coffee.
I know, joking.
It's one of my favourite jobs.
It would be
actually.
remiss of me not to accept.
And what about you, Emma?
I'm fine, thank you.
Lovely,
You sure?
thank you.
Got your water, okay. A biscuit?
Oh, go on then. Oh no, I can't eat on camera. Absolutely not.
can,
No, I'm
you
not
can.
doing it.
They'll take the camera off you. Have a jammy dog.
I'm not.
Persuading, selling, obviously seen as one of the key territories for account handling. Another, probably the most core competence is operational skill and acumen, making the place run and making the account run and making the products get delivered to the highest standard. These are not great skills of mine, organisational skills. What do you look for when you're looking at your team? What do you look for from an account handler, as in behavioural characteristics?
I think one is people who are quite swan-like. So they project calm, but then under the surface they are seriously hustling, and whether it's like hungry to learn, being curious, asking the right questions, being really malleable. I think people here are very entrepreneurial about getting things done and finding ways and means to make things happen. I think that is a huge skill in account management. Someone who keeps everything moving, and it's quite chaotic, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, definitely. It's not always the most easy thing to have as feedback, but people who are likable. I always say, would you want to spend 4 hours on a train to Timbuktu or wherever it is with that person? Because if not, your clients are not going to either.
Yeah.
They do have to be likable, because although we have to be operationally very, very strong, we are not project managers. We manage the relationships. And so that we have to be able to form relationships quickly. We have to, listen to people, understand them, sometimes understand what they aren't saying as much as what they are saying, or even maybe that they're not comfortable saying X, Y, Z in front of a room full of people. You can only do that if you are someone who is likable and emotionally intelligent, so that you form that trust really quickly, and develop those relationships. Because without that, you're already going in blind.
Yeah, I really like that point about what they don't say as much as what they do say. There's a phrase which probably annoys you because it's physically impossible, but an ability to see around corners is a quality that I think is hugely prized in account handling, is to anticipate a problem before it exists or before it appears.
Yep.
Do you sort of identify with that, or is that just an annoying thing a planner would say?
No, it is an annoying thing that people sometimes say due to its impossibility, but it is still true. And, we do spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about what the possible outcomes might be, sort of mental scenario planning for a conversation, for the outcome of a conversation, for the conversation after the conversation before the conversation. And that sort of, mental agility, that time you spend thinking about all those things is the time that, to give the other people space to be thinking about the ideas. That is definitely a really critical thing that we have to do and probably enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, helps you see round corners, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good description of.
You gave me a bit of advice when I first started. Well, you've probably given it to many people, but it was always have a healthy sense of paranoia. And it's always stuck with me because it's so true. I think good accountant people don't assume anything. And it means that they can kind of be one step ahead rather than just dealing with what's right in front of them. They are kind of preventing things from even happening, preventing fires from even starting.
Yes, I mean, that's actually taken one of my notes, was for me, alarm bells start ringing when the phrase firefighting is used continually on a piece of business. I think some account handlers are in danger of being arsonists and can only really motivate themselves and the teams by crisis.
Yeah.
And I think some clients are a bit like that. And then it becomes unhealthy because there's no swan-like progress. Of course, we're all panicking like mad under the surface, but at least above the surface, it can look orderly. And smooth and also purposeful. I think that one of the things that one or two of the I'm laughing because we've both worked quite closely with Michael Sugden, and he's got certain ways of imposing order. And
I don't know what you're speaking about.
but one of them is the experience mapping. Another is the North Star. But those processes of going, let's look 3 years ahead, really can help, I think. Take the immediate pressure. What's the phrase? The urgent displaces the important. And you can end up in a spiral of urgency, missing the important thing. So that and making so much of it conversational rather than crisis talk. Making it conversational really helps anticipate. One measure I have is, because I've seen this as good, bad and indifferent, is the room ready? Now that seems incredibly prosaic and a little bit demeaning to the account handlers, but to me, it's a bit like, is the brief ready?
Absolutely.
It's one of the core jobs is to receive the client, or whatever that meeting may be. And I think a lack of forward thinking shows a lack of attention, shows a lack of care, and it unsettles me.
I think the room, quite physically, but also metaphorically, like what you were saying about the chat before the chat is what I talk to my team about. It's like, is everyone clear on the purpose of the meeting, what we are seeing, what we're not seeing, like a client's expectations managed? Have you reassured them that the work is any good? I just think all of that sets up the meeting far more for success, and good account people are really good at creating the right conditions so that work can be bought.
Did you describe that as a metaphorical room?
Metaphorical room. It's like walking into that room.
I think that's a much more important point. Is the lack of thought. One, there's going to be thought given to the physical space, which I think is symbolic, but then actually has that hour been thought through? Has an email gone before? Has there been a discussion around what we want to achieve? All that. But but it's quite, even at a, sort of an agency with very strong account handling, you can lurch into meetings without much thought, and that can then lead to that scrabble.
Definitely. And the physical thing, although it is, and it's definitely a symbol, how you set up a physical room, it certainly doesn't instill confidence if everyone's scrapping around finding wires at the beginning of a meeting. But it is also really, really important as part of that learning as you go through account management, because there is plenty of this job that is not glamorous.
Yeah.
There is plenty of this job that is, that feels like admin. First of all, you're going to have to run towards that and away from it and find some joy in it. I can find it perfectly satisfying making sure that the room is set up neatly. You've got to find enjoyment in the small as well as the big.
Yes.
And also, that discipline and that rigor has to come through everything that you do. You need that excellence is embedded from the bottom up. And if those things start to slip, it ends up, snowballing into the next and the next and the next. So I think although even just the physical room is a small symbol of good account management, it's an important one for for those varying different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we could discuss this, actually, it's not on my list, but are we a service business or a manufacturing business? Because you could argue the creative department, if we liken it to a restaurant, you could say the creative department, the kitchen's more important than the front of house, which would be account handling. But actually, I think that's a false distinction. I think they both have to be impeccable for it to be world class. And you get narrative bias. If you go into a restaurant and the table's not cleaned, you immediately wonder about the standard of cleanliness in the kitchen and so on and so forth. And it's quite difficult then to change the narrative once the client's had one or two bad initial experiences, and then it becomes quite difficult to sell and present work that we feel is the right answer, because there's a little bit of hesitancy there. Anyway, sorry,
it then limits your ability to grow that piece of business, to extend your remit into other areas, because if you can't even deliver on one thing, a client's not going to trust you with anything else. It means you don't get as high up the food chain as well. You're not involved in business strategy or proposition development if you can't deliver a banner ad.
Well, let's go there now then, because that was sort of twice we've touched on this. So in a way, you're talking about developing. I think it's called business development, isn't it? Whereby, because you do a good job in one area, you get the opportunity to compete in more areas. Now, I've got two questions here. One is, what are the skills required? And the second is, when it isn't us providing a service, so it may be a social media agency, or it might be a media agency, it could be a PR agency, how do you play nicely? So where can we develop? Where's that legitimate? And then where do you have to learn to play nicely with other agencies and business partners?
I think it's developing naturally where you are going to add real value and make a real difference, and that it's not you going off on a big rampage to take all other agencies' work. I think it's about saying they are brilliant for that, they should continue working, we'll work really well with them, but we would really be able to help you with this thing over here. I think it's not about eating everyone's lunch, it's just about integration. And often when you have so many cooks across so many agencies, that's just really difficult. No matter how good each individual agency is, there's too many handoff points. So I think,
I think you often find you can go from a situation of 9 agencies down to 2 or 3, but clients seldom want to put everything in one. In one nest.
No, and I think that's very fair. And the baton pass that Emma mentions, it is messy and it causes a headache for the client. So I think sometimes, there is a point where that many, there's too many agencies involved, it is inefficient. I think also maybe how we handle it at VCCP might be slightly different from other agencies, in the sense that, we talk all the time in terms of our founding principles and
Dave,
in being...
Can I request that you come and have a look at our It Only Works If It All Works, now we're on this subject. Because this is something that one of our key principles at work at VCCP is that you can't dislocate any one touch point from the brand experience, because it's all advertising, it's all the brand. And and so consequently, whether or not we supply these disciplines and these capabilities, we think they have to work in unison. You were saying about that.
Yeah, I think because we have an understanding of a lot of different areas, I think we're in a strong position to be the conductor of those, but we also understand that they have to work in harmony. So I think you go into that with the right objective. You're not, to Emma's point, trying to, take X, Y, or Z away from another agency or block them from something. You're trying to make sure all those elements work in harmony. So I think that changes the nature and the focus of that exercise. And I think the way that we do it, since I'm standing here
Go on, yeah.
anyway.
Make use of the wall. A lot of effort went into this.
Exactly. That's different from other agencies, is I think that we do have a view that great ideas can come from anywhere. And I think that is and it's certainly true of the way that you embody it as an account person. Yes. It means that when you're working with multiple different agencies or different client groups, you are doing that with that philosophy in mind. And I think that changes the way that the interaction comes across. The nature of that interaction is that you're not coming in thinking you have all of the creative solutions to every single person's problem. You may acknowledge that lots of people can add creative value from all different disciplines. And I think that is really important because it doesn't put people's hackles up straight away.
No.
I think having less red tape here also really helps. Like when I speak to lots of people at other agencies, when I'm interviewing and stuff, I think that's always really attractive about VCCP because it's not like you have all these different P&Ls that are so complicated to navigate. It means you can pull in the right brains on different briefs, and that then leads to business development because you pull in people from UX UI, you pull in people from behavioural science because they're right for that brief. They really impress, and then there's an opportunity for them to work on another brief.
But where it goes wrong, just because I don't want it to look like it's always sweetness and light, is and where the client, I think, plays an important role, is it has to be quite well policed because let's take Valentine's Day. You might have a social media agency that wants to win its award with that work. You might have an ad agency. You may have a media agency that's just got a bit of free content and which they're going to generate with Channel 4 Studios or something. They may all decide to produce work to an entirely different brief because they're doing it scurrilously in an attempt to get the project fee. And that is where brandicide starts. Is where brands start tearing themselves apart because there's no single expression of the brand. There's no brand world. Brands begin to lack that cohesion and singularity that marks the best out from the rest. So the skill of account handling is that conductor. Now, whether that's conducting inside or outside, and it's matched really, isn't it, by the client? The client probably has to be the superconductor.
And I think occasionally there is, if I might say something about our lovely clients, there is occasionally a naivety, which is, here's the problem amongst yourselves. Please return with one singular solution. And there'd be nothing more that Emma and I would like than to be able to smooth that through and present one unified solution. But there are occasions where the swim lanes need to be policed. Even if we do our best to make that not happen.
Good fences make good neighbours.
Exactly.
And I think we pride ourselves on flourishing with lots of comms partners with clients, but those relationships are built on very clear boundaries. Otherwise, you're going to get foraging parties, and everyone's going to get distracted. This is the old account handler, very different from the modern account handler. But
although Emma and I have come dressed in suits that seem
you're looking
let the record
good,
state it was not coordinated.
Not coordinated. This is Dougie doing a bit of a client handling with me and Can. Anyway, I don't know quite why that's like. Dougie was supposed to be coming. He was supposed to be coming. So anyway. But we've upgraded to the two far better account handlers. Let's go back. There is an important quality of camaraderie. So one of the things I pride myself on, I think you two definitely do, does the client actually want to be in the office? Do they look forward to coming into the office? Do they look forward to meetings, or do they slightly dread them? And I think there are agencies probably where it's a little bit less of an appealing idea of going in and spending a day in the agency. And that's quite important. What's the word? Soft skill, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think we are lucky. We have lots of our clients coming in and spending time here that makes mine and Emma's job a million times easier, to be honest, because we can have many different conversations all in one go. But also we often rely on, physical body language to sense someone's, challenges or their excitement about something. And that just enables us to do our job better in those sorts of environments. But yeah, we are very lucky that a lot of our clients do come into the office a lot. Even some of our global relationships, we try and make sure they can happen in the physical space a lot. And that is really beneficial, even if occasionally a quick 30 minutes team call is still acceptable.
Yeah,
Yes.
it becomes more fluid, the conversation, doesn't it, when you're in person, rather than it feels very much like we present on Teams, which is difficult when it's a creative conversation. You want everyone around the table, you want everyone chipping in.
Yeah, definitely.
Much better.
I think that body language point's terribly important. I think clients who if you don't see your client face to face on a regular basis, I think that's masking something else. And because sort of wherever I think of where have we been our best, where are we achieving our greatest sort of output?
Yeah.
It's nearly always with clients who it's that thing which is indefinable because you can't define why being in the same space is so important, but I think it is partly body language, it's partly the fluidity, it's partly the accidental nature of conversation that just leads to better results.
Yeah.
I think it's even more important as well because I feel like client entertaining isn't as prevalent anymore.
Yeah.
Partly because of working from home and flexible working, but I think that used to be grab a quick pint, grab a bite to eat between meetings, but now the days in the office are back to back to back to back, I think, for everyone. And so those kind of spontaneous moments don't happen.
You did
as
injure
much.
yourself at the agency party, though, didn't you?
I did.
I can't believe you dobbed him in like that.
I was going to think I was too drunk.
There's a little bit.
I don't know what I did.
Still the mystery injury. No, it is more important that a lot of the client entertaining is in-house, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I always admire cat handlers for is that you have to deal with the grubby business of money and yet maintain very cordial client relations. And it's a lot of people, I certainly would struggle with that. I think there's a slight Britishness about talking about money. It's quite a tricky subject. And then on top of that, I'm just a terrible negotiator. So I would actually pay the client to work for them rather than the other way around. So I'm not. How do you manage that? How do you manage not just the negotiating the fees if we win a piece of business, but then the annual fee negotiation, often sometimes quarterly reconciliation, things like that.
I mean, we've talked about this. I think both you and I quite enjoy those conversations. I think it helps you have a really clear understanding of what the future looks like, because if you're talking about what the next year, the year beyond, maybe sometimes 3 years in advance might look like, and therefore what the scope and the shape of the team should look like, she helps you have some really, really productive conversations to start off with. So I think it helps you get on the same kind of level with your client and have some information that is of use to both of you.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of have to enjoy it because it's a really big part of the job.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not a tricky thing to balance, but you have to have some enjoyment in it, I think.
Yeah.
You've got to be very sure of your ground, haven't you, to be comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. But it's absolutely the right logic.
The pride is definitely a thing. This is conversations that both, Peaky, Suggs and Dougie have all had with us over our careers, but is that we make great work and work we should be incredibly proud of. So we don't need to enter into those conversations with trepidation around that. If you aren't delivering good work, then you might be, but we are, and we should feel very confident about that. And we also spend a lot of time building really close relationships with the clients where we can have difficult conversations. And money conversations are difficult conversations, no doubt about it. But they can stay in the room if your product is great and you have the relationships as the foundations for those. The difficult conversation can stay in the room and not eke out into the rest of
I think that's the other thing is to keep it so it's not a defining aspect of a relationship. It's contained within a smallish group so that everyone else can focus on the day job.
Having that openness and honesty around the fees as well, like being really transparent about it. And if things aren't working, which sometimes does happen in certain pockets of an account, it's talking to the client about that, changing the resource model, like flipping things on its head, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because now with generative AI, there are all sorts of genuine economies that can be made in production that you need to have conversations where we're talking about reduced costs. Now that actually may be beneficial to VCCP because it's not reducing our core business, it's reducing other core businesses. But you can't pretend that those conversations don't happen. And it might also be that it's cost neutral, but new technologies can enhance productivity.
Yeah,
et
or
cetera.
quality of output
Yeah.
in the time you would spend to do that.
So it's a continually moving process, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked a lot about this with Barclays, though. I think, well, certainly now, AI is very good at tasks, isn't it? So it can help with like admin, reducing time on some of the less glamorous parts of our role. But it's not very good at jobs. It can't think critically. It can't do a lot of the work that we do for clients around business strategy and emotional work. A lot of that, it needs judgment and reasoning, and I don't think it will get replaced for that.
No, I mean, it will be very interesting to see, this isn't for this conversation actually, because it's more when I get onto planning, but the role of synthetic research and the degree to which it's as good as or equal to going to speak directly to customers and end users. I agree entirely that also tasks, not jobs, but also AI can be very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people think that it's sort of absolutely free, but actually you have to operate it, and the operation is not cheap.
Yeah.
If you want to do it well. And so building something like Daisy, which is one of the VMO2 great success stories at Cannes, was not a sort of free, we just ask AI to do it, please. And that's where sometimes it's actually enhancing the product but not cutting costs. Sometimes in production terms it can speed things up, or you can make adapts much more readily, and it does cut costs. But this notion that it's universally going to be cheaper, I think, is very mistaken.
Yeah. Agree.
Although it will make us more productive, which is a value return. Now, we're coming towards the end. I want to touch on pitching, but are there any things that I haven't covered that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
No, I think if I was speaking to somebody who was thinking about starting a career in account management or contemplating whether they would move into account management, and they were asking about an attribute or a characteristic that they should have, I would probably have one unglamorous note that I would say, which I talk to you about sometimes, Charles, which is you do need quite a lot of grit and tenacity, and that can be forgotten sometimes. And that isn't, it's certainly not depicted in our Mad Men posters, but it is definitely a really core characteristic of an account person. And I think some of those early years of being an account person can be hard-won, and some fairly tough innings. But I would encourage people to sort of stick it out, and there are obviously brilliant parts of it, but you do need quite a bit of grit, I would say, if you would agree.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Especially the apprenticeship side of it, the early stage. But actually, the only other thing I'd add to that sort of important piece of advice is also be memorable.
Yeah.
Partly because
We say wearing the same outfit.
Exactly.
it can be demanding.
Yeah.
And as you say, it can be quite sort of daunting. Any job in a profession like advertising, where the product is very, very public, and your role is very conspicuous. And I think account handling in particular isn't, if you like, just operational. It's also the person up front conducting the orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that role requires a bit of thought. The persona you project why you are the go-to person, how you signal that. Everyone will have their own way of doing it, but you can't, the planners to an extent, greater extent, can be another person in the room, but you can't afford to be too innocuous. If you want to be the lead account person on a given project, you need to be memorable and impose yourself on proceedings. And I think that takes a little bit of confidence and a little bit of experience as well.
I think you want people in all departments to be like, thank God you're on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
that one, I'll have that. Yeah, I mean, and it seems a cruel, not cruel. It seems a slightly rudimentary measure, but I think that's the way in quick decision making. Who's going to be on this pitch? We need someone. And memorability and personality are a key part of account handling.
Yeah.
So a little bit of self-assertiveness is required, I think.
Yeah.
Now, on that note, actually, finish with pitching. I don't know why we're finishing with pitching, but that's a very I suppose the reason I wanted to finish with pitching is it's kind of like, so if you're trying to train people, you often, the way to train them is to give them a pitch, because you sort of see all the
absolutely.
I suppose it's the archetypal time when the account, whether it's the business partner or the account director, but whatever the sometimes it's called business director, whichever level of seniority is running the pitch, they are absolutely the front and centre because they have to be, because they're only 3 weeks and everyone needs to know they're reporting in. What would be your recommendations on pitching, and sort of any do's and don'ts?
Put your hand up for it.
Do it and do it as much as possible. Yeah.
Because of the fast learning.
Think it's just such a distillation of everything. You experience it in planning and creative. It's just, you're putting our whole job that might otherwise take 9 months on steroids and doing it at in an incredibly intense period, really, really condensed. So it can be a huge accelerant and in a very short space of time. And I think also good account people do put their hands up for things. It normally pays back. And so learning that in practice and doing a pitch, the first thing would be say yes to it, put your hand up for it, for sure.
But I think some people don't want to do it because they think, well, what if we lose? And it's like, well, you're not going to excel if you hide in the shadows. Like, you're going to learn, and even if you do lose, like, you will have learned a lot. You will have brought a lot of people together. You will have learned a lot about the agency. You will have worked with senior management. Yeah, I think
pitching is for losers. I mean, we've done an episode on pitching, and you can lose to win. Obviously, it's nice to win, but you can have losing victories without a shadow of a doubt. Now, either because you've built a great relationship with the people in the business you would never have met, or because, in fact, what you were recommending was a year ahead of itself, and clients come back, and that happens quite a lot. So this idea that it's purely the binary outcome is mistaken, and it's interesting that you both said get on pitch would be your main piece of advice.
Absolutely.
And then what you learn is what you learn.
Because also even if you're working on a big account, there are mini pitches all the time for scopes of work, new parts of the business. So although you might not be pitching for a new piece of business, those skills you learnt doing that, you can then apply on your accounts, I think.
Yes. I think it does keep you match fit as well.
It's uncomfortable, it's nerve-wracking, you put yourself out there a bit, don't you? Especially if you're leading the pitch, but I think you learn a huge amount. I always find them quite exciting.
Also, you don't work in advertising if you don't like a little bit of adrenaline, and there's so much of that adrenaline that goes on in a pitch that, win or lose, you've had a pretty amazing experience the whole way through.
No, I think it suits a lot of the characters that work in advertising, and you are almost by definition also, there's that you have your day in court, you are a centre of attention, you've got your chance to make your case, and we are advocates, not judges. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, Liv. Thank you very much, Emma. Very interesting and very edifying conversation.
Thanks for having us. We're pleased the Account Management got its day.
Subscribe subscribe to be notified when new content comes out, and don't forget to like and comment.